Hey guys, we're back. And today I'm going to share with you a story that I've been wanting to share for a long time. And it is how I obtained my Chinese motorcycle driver's license here in Beijing. Now, first of all, just quickly, how I even got into bikes in China. And that is mainly because I had friends that were already riding and were already into sidecars and all that. And to be honest, I wasn't really into motorcycles that much before. I was into old cars, always old cars. But for some reason, when I first saw a sidecar, I thought, man, that is something I could get into, something I could enjoy wrenching on, and even the word car is in the name. So I kind of got into sidecars first, and then I just got into bikes in general from that. So, I first came here in the early 2000s, but I didn't get into bikes until about 2016. And even then, I had friends that, well, some of them didn't have a license, and some of their bikes didn't have a plate or anything. But I decided I would do it the legal way, because China was starting to tighten up a little bit about the rules. So some of my friends had previously been able to get a Chinese license because they already had a motorcycle license from the US or Europe, and then all they had to do was take the written test, which actually is a computer test. And back in the day, you could choose to take the test in other languages besides Chinese, like English or, I don't know, probably French and Russian, as it still is today with the car driver's license test. But at some point, I'm not sure exactly which year, but they decided that the motorcycle computer test should only be Chinese. They took away the option for foreign languages. And by the time I wanted to do that in 2016, that was already a thing. So, okay, not impossible. I don't have a driver's license from the US, but my Chinese was decent at that point. I'd already been studying Chinese for many years, so I decided to give it a go. Okay, so the first step was to go to the training course to get some information and register to take my training. You also have to take the written test twice. You have to take it once and pass it in order to be able to do the course training. And then once you pass the course, like field training, you have to take the written test again to prove that you really know what you're doing. So, the written test, well, at that time it was a possible 400 questions, and I had an app that I practiced all the content questions with. And the first test was, well, they're both the same. They're randomly picked 50 questions, and I think 15 or 20 of them are true and false, and then the rest of them are multiple choice. So, okay. So I register, and I was able to schedule the first computer test about 6 weeks later, I think, if I recall correctly, because, again, this is 2016. So I basically just studied my ass off with that app, and lo and behold, when I took my first computer test, I got a 98%. There was a question I got wrong. That was actually a question I knew, but I guess I was feeling overconfident. It was a true and false question. So, hey, pretty darn good, right? I'm feeling good already. So after that, I did my course, field training, and that was 3 days, and that was specifically for sidecar motorcycles. Now, here's another interesting point. In China, there's a Class C motorcycle license and a Class D motorcycle license. The C is for two-wheeled motorcycles, and the D is for three-wheeled motorcycles, like sidecars, like what I had at the time. Now, it's almost kind of backwards, because really, we all know a two-wheeled motorcycle is more difficult to ride. But in China, if you have the motorcycle license for three-wheeled, bikes, like sidecars, you are also allowed to ride two-wheeled. So that's what I have. But if you have the C motorcycle license, that's for two-wheeled, like technically you're not supposed to be riding sidecars, right? It's weird. I don't know. Backwards logic to me. Anyways, so I did the 3 days of training, and it was cool. They had sidecars there. It was a lot of fun, a lot of good guys, good instruction, good practice. And at the end, at the last day, the end of class, all the other people, the Chinese students, were able to, right then and there, take their computer test. But me, as a foreigner, I was not allowed to do that. I had to wait another week and then go to the other office, to their automobile, DMV equivalent office, and then take the computer test there. So anyways, a little annoying. But a week later, I did go take the test again, and the second time I took it, I got 100%. So felt pretty good. I gotta say, right after when I got 100% on the test and I left with my license in hand, I felt like such a badass. I was like, damn, that's gonna be a top 10 moment for me. So this just goes to show you that in China, you can do it. It can be done, but you're gonna have to have some language ability. It's a little bit irritating that, like, when I visit the US with my wife, who's a Beijinger, she has an international driver's license, so she can drive in the US, and when we're there, she drives sometimes. But of course, if I were visiting here as a non-resident, I wouldn't be able to drive. So that is another point, that you can only apply to test for a driver's license here if you actually live here. So when you do register for the test, you are going to have to bring all your paperwork, like your visa, your 住宿登记表, which is basically like a housing registration paper from the police station that has your address and proves that you live here. What else? Probably the contract with your landlord to your housing, that like proves you also live where you say you live. They need basically everything you have to prove, like, triple that you actually do live here. And that's just the way it is. When my license expired after the 5-year point, I went back, and the same thing. I had to bring, even though I didn't have to take the test again to get my new license, I had to bring all my documentation with me to prove that I still lived here. So it's a story, but nowadays I did contact a friend who works in the that industry, if you will, of motorcycle training, and she said that there's more than 400 questions now. There's more content, but what I could gather from her, that essentially the process is more or less the same. So if you're from abroad and you come to China to live and you want to get your license, it can be done. But yeah, for sure, you're gonna have to have a pretty decent level of Chinese. So there you go. It's just the way it is here. If you're visiting China and you want to take, like, a motorcycle tour or something, you won't be able to ride legally, without a license. And China doesn't recognize an international driver's license. So what you gonna do? You can get in touch with me and you can ride in my sidecar, and I'll be happy to take friends around, and that's always an option. But yeah, it's a shame, because when I've gone to other countries, like, for example, Vietnam, I was there with my wife recently, and we were traveling around, and we were able to rent, motor scooters or motorcycles and just, kind of freely ride around. And there, well, that could potentially be another video, but yeah, they were a little bit loose on the rules there too. So I'm not saying that here we would want it, to be loose, like people should ride illegally. I just think it sure would be nice if China recognized the international driver's license, or if there was a way for visitors to, to maybe enjoy the sport here legally in some capacity. So, anyways, that was my experience. Yeah, so nowadays you don't see too many foreigners riding motorcycles, and that's why the biggest two obstacles are, as I said, having the language ability, and then you have to prove residency here. And well, besides the language requirement, during the COVID pandemic, a lot of foreigners left to not come back. So just since then, there aren't nearly as many, foreigners, expats, however you want to say it. There's not as many of us living here as there were before, although some are slowly coming back. So, anyways, that's my story about obtaining a driver's license here. Yeah, it's kind of funny because I had my motorcycle license, in China before I had my license, in California. So now I have both, of course, but yeah. Anyways, so if you're thinking about moving here and enjoying motorcycles, that's a little taste of what you'll have to endure to get the license. I definitely recommend it. Totally worth it. And if you live here, you're gonna want to have language ability anyways. So that's my story. Anyways, happy riding, keep safe, and I hope to run into you here.